Hey there riders, MotoJourno Chris here today, and I have got KTM's 390 Adventure thanks to Moto Hub in Castle Hill here in Sydney. They've lent me the bike for the day and I wanted to have a chat about the ergonomics, and that's basically just how this is going to fit you as a rider. Now, as a 180 centimeters tall rider, I think I'm pretty middle of the pack, and I have to say so far I've been impressed with the comfort and the design of the KTM. So when it comes to the KTM 390 Adventure, there's a few things to keep in mind. First off, this is an adventure machine with long travel suspension, and secondly, this is widely going to be considered a beginner machine, even if it's not just a beginner machine. Now, long travel suspension means a taller seat height, as does the adventure moniker, while traditionally a beginner motorcycle is kept as low as possible, particularly with that seat height. With an 855mm seat height, the 390 Adventure is tall. There's no way to sugarcoat this fact, with the Versys 300 and CB500X both shorter at 815 and 810mm seat heights respectively, while the TRK 502X from Benelli has an 840mm seat height. One of the advantages of the 390 Adventure is how narrow the bike is between the legs, however, minimizing that reach to the ground as well as the narrowness of the seat towards the tank. So despite the seat height, it should be easier to reach the ground. With 177 front and 170 rear travel from the high-spec suspension, that pushes the seat height up, while a generous 200mm of ground clearance also takes its toll. Compare that to the competition and you're getting more potential suspension travel, quite a bit more in some cases, with only Benelli offering more ground clearance. KTM also seem to have placed the 390 Adventure in the lighter off-road segment with those cast wheels, even if rumours state we'll see some spoked accessory options later in the year. That's reinforced by there not being an enormous amount of sag like you'd see on a dirt bike when you jump on the bike. With stock settings, the bike doesn't settle significantly lower than without a rider, where on some dirt bikes, once you get a leg over, the reach to the ground gets considerably smaller. I'm thinking my DRZ 400 and the WR250R I tested last year, for instance. Now, I'm 180 centimeters tall and I couldn't flat foot both feet on the 390 Adventure in my road boots, although in my City Adventure 2 boots, which are an adventure boot, the extra sole would make that easily possible. However, I could get a single foot down flat with a bit of room to spare without needing to shift off the bike to a massive extent. If you really want the 390 Adventure, this may be something you'll need to think about, as most of the dual sport machines like those I just mentioned have a higher seat height again, sometimes significantly. One of the big advantages for small riders with the 390 Adventure will also be the weight. This bike isn't dual sport light, but it's comparable to the Versys X300 and significantly lighter than the CB500X, which is then significantly lighter than the TRK 502. The ride triangle itself is compact and seems suited to smaller riders, while I could see some riders dropping the pegs down to stretch out a little or to make it easier to stand on the pegs while riding off-road. Meanwhile, the reach to the bars is easy. Limiting fuel capacity to 14 litres also seems a smart choice here, as it prevents the bike getting too top heavy when filled right up, again helping keep the bike friendly to new and smaller riders, while the 390 Adventure's road manners are exceptional, particularly compared to a dual sport. Obviously, some riders are upset that KTM haven't provided a bike that offers a lower seat height, and I think this kind of highlights one of the issues in the adventure segment. There's riders who will probably never do more than an unsealed road on their adventure machine, and then there's people who will give their mates on dirt bikes a run for their money at times. For the former, they arguably don't need an adventure bike or many of the design features that make them what they are. The long travel suspension, greater ground clearance, it's not that much use here. If you're getting more serious about adventures, these are much more integral, and I'd still say the 390 Adventure is on the more road-orientated side of things despite these inclusions. Think everyday commuting with comfort and ease, then fire trails and some light single trail on the weekends, or even doing some decent touring. Now, if the seat height is the only thing holding you back, maybe you need to check out the Versys X300, or maybe you need to figure out if you can work with what's offered on the 390 Adventure. If you can't get even a single foot down, sure, maybe it is not for you. But it's a bit unreasonable to expect to flat foot both feet on an adventure machine, even if we'd all love that for the extra confidence.
Particularly for a new rider, if you can get one foot down flat securely on the road, and this is your first bike, it may be a little more challenging to get started, but it's probably worth it if this is the machine you really want.
So jumping on the bike, as you can see here, I've got 1 foot down flat on the far side of the bike, or I can do it on this side of the bike. No issues at all. There's probably a fair bit of room, even for a shorter rider, to get the 1 foot down. If you're trying to get 2 feet down, I just can't quite get them both down. So that's something to think about. If I was in my adventure boots, which have a bit more sole on them, that wouldn't be a problem. So as far as the seating position, it's very, very upright. It's quite a neutral seating position. As you can see, you know, there's a bit of angle to my legs. It's not an enormous reach between the seat and the peg. That's one thing that I've noticed. I think the pegs could almost be a little bit lower, and it's very, very wide across the handlebars. And of course, with the geometry of the bike, very small inputs on the front end give you a lot of control, so it's very nicely sorted in that regard. It's a very neutral handler, very, very easy to ride, very stable as well. I think in a lot of ways it's a lot more road orientated, and that's true with the Ergonomics, which are, you know, I would say on the more compact side as far as that seat to peg ratio, and also the seat to handlebar to grip to peg ratio. It's quite a small ride triangle, but you are very, very upright on the bike, and of course that gives you great vision down the road. Lots of confidence as well sitting upright, good vision through the mirrors, a bit of wind protection, easy view of that dash at all times, and of course very, very easy access to the switch block controls. You've got your starter on the right here, you've got adjustable levers on both sides, which means if you've got smaller hands or larger hands, you'll be able to adjust those within the 5 preset settings, which is a nice feature, nice premium feature on a bike. The other thing to keep in mind is depending on how your weight varies, you've got some good adjustability in the forks, which is very, very unusual in this class of bike. That's a very nice feature to see. It's very well balanced as well. It's relatively easy to roll around. I did have to push it about 200 meters for photos earlier, and I did find that a little bit tiring. It's no dirt bike because obviously it weighs a fair bit more, but at the same time, it's a very, very inviting machine that's obviously been designed to get people into the adventuring side of things. Good commuter, good little bit of adventure, a little bit of touring, a little bit of everything, and the Ergonomics are certainly designed around that. You could even get a pillion on the back, and they're going to be relatively comfortable considering it's a smaller capacity machine. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the videos or you've got any questions about the ergonomics of this particular bike, just let me know in the comments. I will do my absolute best to answer them as always. And of course, don't forget to sub and hit that notification bell because that helps a lot. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.